This is OL Nation Session 14. Welcome Laurentians around the globe and across generations. Our mission is to focus on thought leadership, knowledge sharing, mentoring, and professional networking. We have a great session lined up for you this evening. And now I welcome Johnny Paul, Windia 1970, President of the All Laurentians Association. Folks may or may not know that Johnny is a great supporter of motorsport in India. He sponsors the popular rally. Welcome, Johnny. Over to you.
Thank you, Rohan. Hi, everyone. Today's topic at the Oil Nation reminds me of a quote that goes, "Whoever said that money can't buy happiness has not found themselves the right car." Today, I'm really glad that our guest of the day is Dilbagh Gill, CEO and team principal of Mahindra Racing, having come to know now that ahead of joining Mahindra, his high-profile assignments included being the project manager of FIFA World Cup as well as the A1 Grand Prix. I'm really excited. My son-in-law is right now in the team that's organizing the World Cup at Doha. Dilbagh has steered Mahindra Racing, the only Indian team to compete in the ABB FIA Formula E Championship, exceptionally well. We are proud to have you amidst us today. Well, for me, cars were a part of my genetic makeup, so to say. Growing up in the backdrop of our family's automotive business, cars were my earliest fascination, and it remains so to this very day. In the early 80s, I participated and even won a couple of auto rallies, both as a driver and navigator. As part of our business, we created and ran the popular rally from 1984. We celebrated the silver jubilee of the event in 2019. The euphoria among motorsports lovers here drives us each year to carry on the legacy. That's my special interest in today's subject. Dilbagh, please do us the honors. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Johnny. It was so great to hear from you. Thank you very much. And now we have the headmaster, Mr. K. Prabhakaran. Mr. Prabhakaran, welcome to Oil Nation 14. Over to you.
Good evening. Thank you for calling and just some sort of update from Lawrence to Lovedale. First of all, greetings from Lovedale. The vacations are over and now our teachers have reported back and we are just preparing for further online classes from 26th onwards, that is next week onwards, online classes are starting. There is no clarity with reference to reopening of the school. The numbers in Tamil Nadu and especially in Nilgiri district is very much under control. However, the reopening of the school and the rest of the decision has to be taken by the government and we are waiting, and hopefully maybe by end of August or maybe beginning of September, schools may reopen at least for senior classes starting from 9, 10, 11, 12. That is what we are expecting. And as far as the topic of discussion of today is concerned, the environment and sustainability, I'm very glad to note that we as school is very much there. We are forefront in this area. We have water harvesting project. The rainwater is harvested in our reservoir and those reservoir water is purified and utilized for the entire campus. We do not have any borewell and we don't take any water from the municipality. The entire requirement of the school is met, water requirement is met with the rainwater harvesting project which is going on for years. Second thing is that we also have solar electric generator system about 32 kilowatt near ABC building, and that generates electricity 32 kilowatt. Then solar heater system is there in all houses, junior school, prep school, girls school and senior school. The heated water for students bathing and all is by the use of a solar water heater. And as far as the segregation of waste management is concerned, this year we just started segregation and waste management shed, and all the bio waste is recycled and used as organic manure for gardening. That particular unit is set up near the cemetery. It is fully functional. Our own staff, our own gardeners and workers are trained to work with that. water, electricity, preservation and utilization of solar energy. These are the things which we are going ahead with it. That's all from us. Thank you and all the best for the Oil Nation team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prabhakar. It is great to have you here with us and good to hear about what's happening at Lovedale. Have a good evening. And once more, I have the pleasure of bringing on stage Kalpana Kuttaiah, Pankaj 1980, your co-host for the session. Welcome, Kalpana.
Thank you, Rohan, and hello, everyone. For this session of Oil Nation, please rev up your engines to hear about motorsports series that's paving the way for the future of electric mobility. To get us started, I'm very happy to introduce our panelist, Dilbagh Gill, who will be in conversation with Arvind Mathew, our moderator for the session. Dilbagh Gill, Vindhya House, batch of 1988, has been CEO and team principal of the Mahindra racing team since ahead of its inaugural session in 2014-2015. As one of 10 founding teams and the only Indian team to compete in the ABB FIA Formula E World Championships, Dilbagh has built his team from the ground up, which has led to multiple race victories and podiums. With more than 2 decades of experience working in technology and business development, and a Tech Mahindra family member, Dilbagh developed unique sporting technology practices that led him to working on high-profile programs, including the project manager of FIFA World Cup and A1GP, a World Cup of motorsports. Under his vision, the Mahindra racing team is now taking part in its 17th season of competition and the third with a Generation 2 Formula E car named the M7 Electro. Arvind Mathew, Vindhya House, batch of 1977, recently retired from Mahindra & Mahindra Limited as the Chief of International Operations. He has had a varied career from automobile to renewable energy and in different environments from Australia to the United States. Prior to joining Mahindra, Arvind held leadership positions in the aerospace industry with Tata Advanced Materials and the renewable energy industry with Suzlon Energy. Prior to 2009, Arvind was with Ford Motor Company and was the CEO of its operations in India. Over his 20-year career at Ford, he has held various positions in Europe and the United States. He has graduate degrees from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, in business administration and mechanical engineering, and an undergraduate degree from BITS Pilani. Arvind and his wife Anne live in Chennai and have 2 sons, Rohit, who's a management consultant in New York, and Samir, who works as a project manager in Berlin. With those very brief introductions, let me pass it along to Arvind and Dilbagh to take us into their world of Formula E motorsport. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalpana, and good evening to you or good morning. Thank you for that brief introduction. And Dilbagh, it's nice to see you again. I think it's good afternoon for you. It's you're in the UK. So for those of you who don't know, Dilbagh and I have been colleagues at Mahindra since 2015. So besides being all relations, we're colleagues too. So Dilbagh, before we get started, I do have to say I'm extremely excited to be hosting this session because I know that both of us are very passionate about cars and very passionate about electric vehicles and sustainability. So I think we'll have a lot of fun over the next 40 to 45 minutes. But before we start, I think I need to get you fired up with a brief video of your first podium win in Berlin in 2017. So let's roll that tape.
Exactly. What a moment, his first ever Formula E race.
So I'm sure, Dilbagh, that was an amazing moment for you. We could see in your face the pride, the joy of many, many hours of hard work. But let's try and get everyone calibrated as to what Formula E is all about. We all know Formula One's been around since the 50s. Famous names like Mercedes and Ferrari and Schumacher and even Indian drivers like Karan Chandok and Narayan Karthikeyan. But what is Formula E? I'm sure most of us on the call have not heard about Formula E. Give us an idea.
So Formula E is a race to a sustainable future. We know this race has no finish line, but that doesn't mean we cannot go faster. So we are talking about tomorrow's technologies being implemented today and pushing boundaries around it.
One of the things interesting that I noticed, which was very different, Dilbagh, was that all your races are bang in the middle of the city. Most Formula One races are far, far away from any sort of activity. Tell me how you manage that.
So I think the first thing what we wanted to do is, okay, take the motorsport world and turn it on its head. And we said, okay, instead of you going to a race, let's bring a race to you. And that's why we sort of race in downtown of some of the most iconic cities around the world, Hong Kong, Paris, Monaco, Berlin, etc. So we go to some fantastic locations. But at the same time also, we have to be conscious of today's world, which is largely a digital world. So we have a lot more fan interaction into our championship. So it's in the city center and with fan interactions. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go down the line.
Great. So, Dilbagh, at this point, I would like to just run another clip, and that gives you it's about 60 seconds, about a minute, and gives people an idea of how you started, how Mahindra started back in 2013 to where we are today. So let's run that clip, and I think we will touch upon many of these points that we will see in the video later in the session. So let's go.
The lights are coming on, and for the first time, we go green in Beijing.
When we got into Formula E in 2013, we did not know what we were getting into.
The fact that Mahindra was the first OEM to join was massively important at the time.
It's a strong statement to our partners that we are here for the long run.
Oh, and it's all kicking off here. Senna holds on.
They convinced me that they know what to do. This is why I moved.
It's third for Nick Heidfeld and Mahindra.
It is a monumental day for Felix Rosenqvist.
We did it, man!
That was a very, very proud moment for us because that told us what all we've been doing for the first few years was right.
That was a really great moment for us, and from there on we had many podiums.
Jerome D'Ambrosio wins for Mahindra! Well done, mate! Well done, mate! Yes!
Brilliant job from Pascal Wehrlein.
Pascal, you're a star, man. That was a wonderful job.
And we got the highest level of accreditation from the FIA from sustainability. No one else had started the journey yet.
They've been a great team, very competitive, they've won many races, they have been a loyal partner all these years, and here they are going forward to Generation 3.
Mahindra Racing is continuing its journey because we believe in what we are doing out here. We're not building something for today, we're building something for tomorrow.
So I'm sure that video set the stage, Dilbagh, for the rest of the session. But before we go there, Dilbagh, let's rewind 33 years. I think it will date both of us, me more than you. But tell me about school for you. Give us an idea of what school was like.
For me, I think being a plantation kid, okay, I knew an option was a boarding school. And I think being in First Cliff School from first standard, just under 5 years old, and then graduating from Lawrence after 12th, when I was like nearly 18, I think those were some of the most memorable days of my life. Okay, there's a lot of good memories. And I think as all of us Laurentians know, today our spouses can tell those stories because we've repeated it so many times with friends, the same old stories, but they never get old. And I think that's the fantastic thing about Lawrence is you can keep repeating those stories, they never get old. I noticed my teenage daughter who rolls her eyes because she's heard it so many times. But at the same time, I think if I had an option to do it, I would do it again.
That's great. Now, I'm sure the headmaster will be rolling his eyes as I poke you to give us some juicy tidbits of what mischief were you up to in high school?
Well, today I'm a team principal. It's spelled the same way as a principal of like the headmaster principal, and I know, okay, what discipline means right now. But those days I remember we were allowed to go out one weekend a month. That was like a Saturday afternoon, come back on a Sunday evening, go out. And I'd already done it once, I think while I was in prep school in that particular month. And my parents, who coincidentally were in Nilgiris at that point of time in a plantation, came over for a second weekend. I just claimed that I had permission and I went out. The whole school was looking for me. They thought, okay, I'd run away from school or something like that. And I come back next evening at 5 o'clock with a lot of tuck. I was a very popular guy because you bring back tuck on a Sunday evening to school. And then they realized, okay, they need to make it a more formal process. And I think that's when the little exit slip started after that. Yeah. So that's my contribution to Lawrence.
So that was your legacy that you left behind. What were your key learnings that helped you out later in life, Dilbagh? You left school about 33 years ago. I'm sure, like most of us, there are things that we can remember we learned in high school that have carried us through all our trials and tribulations to this day. What are those for you?
Well, I think I can give a long answer there, but I think the top of my mind would come maybe 3 points, okay? One is friendship. Friendship is very important in business. Friendship is really important in life. You need the people you can go and talk to where you're not being judged at any point of time. As you know, you go in a career, you're afraid of being judged, etc. And that's where I think the old Laurentian friendship comes in. We don't judge each other. We meet up after many, many years. We just get together and we sort of take it on from where we left it the last time around. And then that's really important. And whatever I've tried to do in work is also to build a culture of friendship around me as I've gone forward. And the second thing which I learned a lot from Lawrence and which has helped me today is independence. We learned to become independent pretty early. We had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. There was no mother or father to wake us up. We had to get out of bed, have your little bun or whatever, the chota bun in the morning. And if you were late, you never got it. So it was like a survival of trying to get there early and then go for PT. So I think all upon a time, it's the independence which we picked up at Lawrence. And last but not the least, I think it's resilience. Because we also learned at Lawrence to live with minimal resources. And I said, yes, it was a lovely school, but at the same time, okay, food was a limited resource, time was a limited resource for having fun, etc. Because we were regimented. But I think at the end of the day, working with those resources, with those friends, and sort of having the independence, and that's really helped me along my career.
That's great. That's a great answer, Dilbagh. Spot on. And I think this comment about resources, you have a little variation of the never give in theme. Your motto is your ambition is greater than the resources given to you. So that's your version of how you manipulated never give in to be ambition greater than resources.
Absolutely, Arvind. I think I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur rather than a manager. And when I looked at what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and I've had a couple of startups of my own, and to be honest, all of them are failures. But I've learned a lot from them. I think I've started 3 companies in my career. One was a reasonable success, which sort of took me on a trajectory. And that was again helped by another classmate of mine from Lawrence, and we'll talk about that. But I think what I didn't learn from my sort of failure sort of helped me out going forward. But at the same time, I think, yeah, it was a great experience in terms of being an entrepreneur. And I realized ambition has to be more than a resource. As soon as ambition and resource become the same, you become a manager. And I never wanted to be a manager.
So before we get to how that Laurentian friend of yours gave you a leg up, tell us about college days and what did you do after school and before you started your various companies?
So I went down to Bangalore from Lovedale, where I went into engineering. I wanted to do mechanical engineering because of my affinity for automobiles, and I thought I'd be able to pick up some stuff out there. I think the first bit was, okay, I was really independent getting into college, and I was a person who had lived in a hostel all my life, came into another hostel. I had a lot of roommates who had never lived in a hostel. So yeah, I think I introduced them to the pubs of Bangalore and other bits of stuff. But at the same time, I think I realized that I finished my pocket money pretty quickly because having a bit more money than the $2 and $10 of Lawrence School sort of went a long way in Bangalore. And I said, okay, now what do? I need to start earning some money to sort of keep myself going. I started repairing motorcycles in college. Okay, I started fixing my friends' motorcycles because I was really had an affinity to bikes. And at the end of the day, I started realizing I could make a lot of money. And many times I was paid not only in cash, but I was paid in kind. And being a college student, okay, alcohol and cigarettes were very welcome in those days. And I think being paid in kind was useful. But at the same time, it sort of made me learn how best to put a motorcycle together because I started racing a little bit also in college. And I think what helped me as a mechanic, the biggest thing was I knew which guy had the best parts on his bike. So when I wanted to go for a race, I knew I could borrow this from someone, borrow that, and put a bike together and go racing.
Great. So I think now is a good time to tell us about how that Laurentian friend of yours gave you a leg up in your first or second startup, in the one that was a success. Tell us about that.
So, yeah, I think as the dot-com boom came around, like Y2K area, right around 2000, and I was at that point of time considered myself to be a hotshot marketeer, whatever you call it. I was running the head of marketing for a cellular company in Chennai and doing quite well. But I said, okay, this is a boom I want to sort of get onto. I was slightly late to the bandwagon of trying to get onto technology, and I did not understand technology very well. So I went down to Chicago. I met up with this batchmate of mine. I will take his name. It's Raman Mangaloka. So Raman was a consultant with A.T. Kearney at that point in time. So we just sat down and said, Raman, I'm looking forward to doing something in the internet space. So he said, what do you want to do? We just went through those whats, whens, the 5 Ws and the 4 Ps or whatever it is, the management jargon. And I said, I'd like to do something around software. He says, okay, so what are the under sort of invested industries? We said, okay, sport. And that's the day when we sat down and we discovered, he said, okay, let's go after the sport industry, because India is not sort of supporting the sport industry. Went down to the sport industry, then we sort of looked, okay, who are the biggest customers there? FIFA, the football guys are the biggest guys in sport. Coincidentally, Raman was advising FIFA at that point in time, so he was able to do the introductions to FIFA. And I got my first project, and it's pretty rare. I never met the customer. I sent a proposal by fax. Remember, those days were fax days, okay? They were before a lot of the email stuff that we're trying to do right now. I got back the signed purchase order by fax, and 3 days later, there was a big deposit in a bank account, which was bigger than whatever we have ever done in a startup company. And that's when I realized, yes, the power of network, the power of friends, and the influence someone can do to get someone sort of started up and give them a kickstart in life. And thereafter, I think it's been a lot more when you start networking with your other friends around the batches, etc.
That's great. So I think that FIFA experience, I think, took you to South Africa, and that's where you ran into another Laurentian. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so this is 2013 when I met Raman, which I spoke about. Thereafter, I got acquired, that little startup of mine, went on to bigger things. And then what we realized was at 2007, we had actually become a sponsor of the World Cup. It was the first time an Indian company became a sponsor of the World Cup. And part of the sponsorship was that we will run their entire IT. Yes, we don't know much about football, but we were representing India there, running their entire IT. And it was a massive project, 200 people for 4 years, 800 man years, getting all the stadiums ready, etc. And who acquired a company? No one other than Anand Mahindra. Okay, so it became Mahindra Satyam. We were running the World Cup under the name of Mahindra Satyam, and Anand came down there. And within 5 minutes, we got to know, okay, I introduced myself as an OL. And the conversation which he had sort of earmarked, I think 15 minutes to talk to us. And after that, he spent 1.5 hours just talking about Lawrence and what we did out there. And I think it was an amazing start of a great friendship and mentorship from there onwards. And yes, 12 years later, I'm still working with Anand.
So I'm going to show a couple of clips of Anand's motor racing exploits. There's obviously motorcycles and Formula E. So let's run some photographs. So Dilbagh, so obviously you've been with Mahindra now for what, 12 years?
15 plus years now, Arvind.
15 years. And I know that you're very passionate about sustainability. Tell us what sustainability means to you, because it's totally aligned with the Mahindra RISE philosophy about, protecting the Earth's resources. What does it mean to you?
I came across this line some time ago and it sort of stuck to my mind. For me, the definition of sustainability is today's solutions should not become tomorrow's problems. And that's when sort of I realized that, okay, it is not one small action which makes a difference. It's a whole change in your lifestyle. It's a whole change in multiple different actions which sort of adds towards sustainability. And at the end of the day, I think what I said is, where can I contribute towards sustainability? And I put a goal for the team, not just in my championship, which is Formula E, but across motorsport. I said Mahindra Racing will become the greenest team in motorsport. I'm happy that 6 years later, we are the greenest team in motorsport right now. We have received every accreditation there is for sustainability, right from maybe the governing body of FIA or ISO. We are working with the UN Council for Sports, etc. So we've taken this pretty seriously. And in fact, last year, we went ahead and planted 1 million trees as a part of a sustainability program in the Araku Valley. And that's also linked to Formula E, because we have something where people get involved in the championship. They can vote for the drivers, which I spoke earlier about Fan Boost, which is when fans can get involved. So what we did last year was that for every Fan Boost vote we got, we planted a tree. And that became 1 million trees a year later.
That's great, and congratulations on this accreditation from FIA on being the most sustainable racing team. So great. I think that gives us a good segue into what about Formula E, because this is what the session's all about. Let's deep dive Formula E and help people, our audience, understand a little bit more detail what Formula E racing is all about. So we saw the excitement on race day, in those 2 first video clips. But as team principal, it's much more than race day. Help us understand, what do you actually do?
Well, if we look at it, it's like running any other company. So me as a CEO out here, my main responsibility, and I sort of drill it down to one word, it's resource. I look after resource. Then I sort of divide it down and say, what are 3 main important resources? That's human resources, getting the right people to do the job. Technical resources, having the right partnerships. We are a new team to motorsport. We don't have the heritage like the Porsches or the Mercedes. So we have to go out there, create partnerships, and I'm putting in a plug for my partners right now. And the last but not the least is having the right budget, the financial resources, talk to sponsors, etc. Because that's our form of income. So I focus a lot of time on these bits out here and then sort of let it play by having the right person at the right place to do the right thing.
Great, and I understand that you have a 54-member team from 13 or 14 different countries. How do you keep everyone aligned? Because when it comes to race day, the pits have to be ultra coordinated. How do you manage that?
I think we all speak one common language within our team, and that language is to win. Okay, for us, second is the first of the losers. Okay, so whenever we go out there to the race weekend, we're looking to win, and we've had our successes, we've had our failures also. But at the same time, I think also putting this team together, aligning them back to who we are. And we sort of make it pretty clear that, okay, we are predominantly an Indian team. So we are not shy of our culture. We talk about our culture. We have the country flag right behind me in our office out here. And we sort of push it on and say, okay, we will bring our Indianness to the world. But at the same time, we will also bring the efficiency, what we learn in motorsport, back to India in terms of doing the right thing the first time around.
So yeah, your comment about the Indian flag, I know that the wheels on your car all carry the Indian colors, the tricolor. At least they did at some point in time.
They always have the Indian tricolor because what we believe is the color moves us forward. So that's the definition of having the tricolor on our wheels, is it takes us forward.
So great. So you have your drivers who will be racing on race day, but I do know that despite your team members knowing exactly what they have to do, you have other responsibilities on race day. I think you have to meet sponsors, and tell us about that. What you have to do when the cars are racing.
Well, I think the prime duty for me on race weekend is just to be the conductor of the orchestra. So my back is towards the audience to a certain extent, letting the experts sort of play their various instruments out there. But as the race gets together, I sort of go out, talk to our partners, talk to the investors in the team in terms of sponsors, our fans, etc., and try and give them to share a part of the experience, what I'm undergoing at that point of time. And it's really amazing when they can see the cars, see the data, what work we do. And once the race starts, we have limited resource on the ground. We're already allowed 17 people, and that's by regulation. So my responsibility is looking after part of the strategy of the car in front of us and the car behind us. So I'm actually looking at a competitor. And it's pretty crazy because in motorsport, while the race is going on, we're actually looking at data on a screen. We're not even looking at the event which is just happening behind us. We're actually looking at numbers and data on the screen, listening to multiple sources of sounds coming through your ears. And I'm really looking forward to hosting some of our old friends out here to come to a race and sort of experience it with me.
That's great. Now, you did talk about fans and sponsors, and let's talk about how the fans get involved in Formula One. You talked about fan boost, you talked about attack mode. What does all this mean?
Well, see, when we started this championship, one of the first things was, okay, let's make it a lot more democratic. So that was first thing was, how do we change the demographic of people who watch motorsport? Formula One is traditionally male dominated with 80%, while Formula E sort of comes down to 52% male and 48% is the rest of the family. How do we get the family involved? We said, okay, let them start interacting and talking to the drivers directly. And the best way to doing it is let them vote for their favorite driver. So a driver literally has to go campaign before every race to these people and talk to them. And the drivers, the top 5 drivers with the votes, get a little bit more energy during the race. And that becomes crucial and it becomes really important. So we try to push for it to get what we call fan boost. So this is one of the few motorsport or any sporting event where you can actually, as a fan, influence something that is happening in lifetime. And fan boost sort of goes on till the first 20 minutes of the race. And guys, I am going to be asking you again later, but we are going to be racing in the next 1 hour's time, and I'm looking forward to your fan boost.
Great. And you gave me a great lead in because you talked about energy management, and that's probably one of the critical differences between Formula One and Formula E. I do have a 15-second clip to basically show what's really different between Formula One and Formula E. It's all in the drivetrain. So why don't we watch that, and then you can come back and tell us how do you manage energy through the race.
So looking at a Formula E powertrain in its basic form, the motor diverts the power to the wheels via the transmission. Now the motor itself is powered by the battery through the intermediate step of an inverter, which converts DC current from the battery into AC current that the motor can use.
So, Dilbagh, you saw the battery, you saw the motor, you saw the transmission. How do the drivers manage their energy? Because the energy is fixed. There's no refueling in Formula E. Tell us how you do that.
Well, yeah, the whole name of this game is energy management. So I think the one stat which sort of stands up in my mind, which I like to share, is when you look at the best Formula One engines, okay, like the Mercedes engine, they are considered 49% efficient. Okay, so 51% of the energy in the fuel is lost through heat or something else. We in electric racing are 98% efficient. So just look at, okay, from the energy source to what we're using, the relevance is so much more for the world today that 98%, only 2% of losses is what we have, compared to 51% in Formula One, which is considered the best gasoline engines in the world. Having said that, we have state-of-the-art simulators in our workshop. So the first thing we start is putting the driver in a simulator. He goes and keeps cracking lap after lap after lap and trying to understand what's the best way to take the circuit. We throw in a lot of variables like weather, grip, and stuff like that. So by the time the driver comes to the racetrack, his muscle memory knows the track. Okay, so he doesn't have to focus on where's my next turn coming from, etc. He's done it maybe 500 laps before he's coming for a 45-minute race. Now his focus is going on how do I work with my competitors and what tools I have. And that's where we try and make it efficient. And I think what we have done, and this is getting a bit technical, is we actually have systems on the car which tell the driver while he's driving through different sounds. Okay, now you get off the throttle. Now you start regenerating. Last lap, you used a little bit more energy to overtake someone. Now you have to save that little bit of energy. And yeah, I think for me, one of the worst moments maybe in Formula E was Mexico 2 years ago. We were leading the race. We ran out of energy 100 meters from the finish, and the car coasted into second.
Here they come. Wehrlein's got 1%. Can he get to the line before he hits 0%? That's going to be the big question. Who's going to win the Mexico City Prix? De Grassi goes for it. Wehrlein covers. He's defending like an absolute demon. Here comes Wehrlein out of the final corner. He hits 0. De Grassi
flat all the way, minimum distance, flat all the way.
One of the things, Dilbagh, that most people may not know is that in electric vehicles, when you hit the brakes or you take your foot off the accelerator, you're actually regenerating energy. So the kinetic energy in the car actually goes back into your battery, and that's all part of the process of managing energy. I just thought I'd throw that tip out.
It's amazing, Arvind. In a race, we are able to regenerate nearly 20 to 24% of the energy which we consume, which goes back into our batteries. So that's something amazing. Like, okay, while you're driving, just imagine, okay, for every 5 miles you drive, you get 1 extra mile, literally coming back into the car.
So, Dilbagh, you've been at this since February. I think your first race this year was in Saudi Arabia, and you've been all over the world, Monaco, Mexico. You were in New York last week, you're in London today, and then you head off to Berlin in August. So 6 months, you're just racing and you're traveling around the world. How do you guys and the cars actually manage this travel schedule with COVID restrictions and all that?
I think first thing, if you're in motorsport, you have travel lust. Okay, you are a person who has got, like as my wife says, you got wheels on your below your shoes. You want to be out there. You want to be going. And the moment I remember last year being locked down for 89 days at home, I was miserable and I made everyone at home miserable. So it was mutual because I just did not know what to do with myself for 89 days sitting at home. Coming back to it, I think we have a well-oiled mechanism in terms of taking the cars out, getting stuff around. The last 1 year has been challenging, but also I think we've taken this challenge pretty responsibly. The amount of protection which we put for ourselves and to the fans around us who come for the races, that we don't leave a legacy of COVID when you leave the city we're going back. And I think that's something which we take very seriously. At the same time, I think I'm really looking forward for putting this pandemic behind us and actually touching and having the fans come in and experience what we are doing. So I think, for us, travel is something important. And I'm a bit of an engineer. I keep an Excel sheet of all my travels. And I think in the last 2 years, I've spent more than 2 months in a year sleeping on a plane. So it's like 60 to 70 nights I'm actually sleeping on an aircraft. That might be the most I've ever slept in one bed over the whole year.
So 6 months is racing, February through August. What do you do for the remaining 6 months?
Actually, Arvind, the other 6 months are a lot more critical for us. You've been in the automotive industry. You know it takes 5 to 6 years to develop a car, from a concept to getting a car out. We have to develop a car every year. So every year we have, one season's over, we have to come out with a new car for the next year. And in motorsport, the moment you're standing still, you're going backwards. So we are looking for those tenths of a second, the milliseconds of improvement in the car. We do a lot of testing. We go around to various tracks in terms of testing. We are hiring people, looking at sponsors, getting a budget sorted out. So for me personally, those 6 months are, I think, the effort to get the next 6 months being a bit easier, because then the team takes over in running the cars.
So Dilbagh, this is all great fun, but what is Mahindra getting out of all this? I know, racing, but there's got to be something that Mahindra gets out of participating in racing circuits. What do they get out of it?
See, end of the day, Arvind, we wanted to accelerate our development. And that's why we put the racetrack as a laboratory for the race to road program, what we have. So what we try and race, we try and send it back towards Mahindra Electric or the other divisions. And I think the case in point for me, which I'm pretty proud of, is we actually started a new electric car company based on Formula E at a Formula E race. And today they're producing the world's fastest electric cars, the Pininfarina Battista. And the first customers in 3 short years from launch of a company are going to be starting to receive the cars, which is for me something phenomenal. You've been in the industry, from a concept of a company to be delivering a 1,900 horsepower car in 3 odd years is something phenomenal. And I think that's where Mahindra sort of racing contributes, is being the laboratory for what you all are going to be driving the next couple of years.
Yeah, so that's a great lead into my next photograph, which is Anand unveiling Battista at the Geneva Motor Show 2 or 3 years ago. As you said, it's a hyper electric car, 2.5 million euros a pop, and only 150 vehicles to be built. So let's take a look at this car. So tell us a little bit about Race to Road. Dilbagh, I do have a clip of Nick Heidfeld, one of your first Formula E drivers. He's now the test driver for Pininfarina. I've got a clip of him running the car in Spain, but before I run the clip, tell us what Nick does.
Well, as we say, he's a test and development driver, so he basically gets on the concept and then tries to tune the car the very best. At the same time, also, as a performance driver, he's the best salesman we have. Because the moment he takes a passenger for a ride, it convinces a passenger, okay, this is somewhere I'm going to be investing 2 million euros into, because it is an experience, trust me, you cannot repeat again. It's you feel the acceleration. Literally, your kidneys are 3 meters behind you after the car starts sort of running. It's something which is mind-boggling in terms of its performance. And I think that's when a professional driver takes you out for a drive. That's when you realize, okay, how bad we are as regular drivers. Okay, that's the capacity and the capability of the vehicle is so far ahead of what we all can do. And I think that's something amazing. And yeah, I think the Battista is going to be in great hands once Nick hands it over. And I think part of it also is with great power comes great responsibility. When you're giving 1,900 horsepower, we need to train you how to drive the car well.
Great. So let's watch that clip. And then when we come back, Dilbagh, I want you to spend a little bit more time on Pininfarina, and Mahindra owns it, but give us a little bit more history behind Pininfarina. So let's watch the clip and then you come back. So Dilbagh, we saw Pininfarina. What's Pininfarina all about? I'm not sure many of us know what this company does. Tell us what they do.
Well, I'll take my own journey on Pininfarina, okay? I love cars. We never had many car magazines in India, so I used to wait for my cousins from America to come back with the car magazines end of the year. And then you look at the posters. And I still remember growing up, I had the red Ferrari Testarossa poster in my home. And in the small, on the side of the door was the logo Pininfarina. So I kept wondering, who are these guys? And as I looked at various car pictures of Ferraris, I always saw the Pininfarina sort of logo there. And these are pre-internet days and stuff like that. Okay, we're growing up still. These are radio and newspaper days, what I'm talking about. Came to know a little bit more about Pininfarina being one of the world's greatest design studios. It's 90 years old right now at this point in time. And 3 years ago, lo and behold, serendipity happened and Tech Mahindra acquired it. And it became into part of the family. And trust me, I was one of the happiest guys at that point of time. And I have the Pininfarina logo right now on my arm out here. But it is a design studio which basically not only designs vehicles, but designs stuff to make your life easier around a lot of products.
Great. So, Dilbagh, I understand that you have a bunch of Ferraris in Boston, including a Testarossa. So let's pop a picture of that on screen, and let's see your cars. And I see a Mustang Mach-E GT. I understand you're moving away from gasoline to electric. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, last week was a bit of an emotional week because I sort of packed off one of my Ferraris. In fact, it was the second or third one which is sort of sold off in the last couple of months. So it was the Ferrari FF, which I was using as my daily driver in Boston. Because I think the week of 9th of August is when the Ford Mach-E GT is being produced. And I think by end of August, it should be at home. So I'm looking forward to moving on to getting my second electric car, because the first one which I have personally is actually an old Formula E car. So I have one electric car in the stable, which I unfortunately cannot use on the road. I'm looking forward to the Mach-E. And I think, it's time for us to move on and, to give away some of those toys and sort of look at new toys going forward.
So, Dilbagh, obviously, you spend a lot of time shuttling back and forth between Boston and London is your office and Spain is your test track, and your boss sits in India. Lots of travel. When do you find time to decompress and do things that you like to do? And what do you like to do when you have some free time of your own?
Yeah, this is an odd moment when I have to confess I like plane travel, because that is actually a time to decompress. I do not get on the Wi-Fi on the plane. I say that's my personal time, so there's no phone, etc. So I just sort of catch up with myself on an aircraft. So that's why I think 60 nights spending on a plane is actually a good amount of detox for me. But going forward, I think I love doing stuff with my hands. So 10 years ago, soon after the FIFA World Cup, I had a bit of free time once the World Cup was delivered successfully in South Africa in 2010. I said, okay, now what do I do? I found a half-finished project of an architect in Boston who was building a home, and I think they ran out of money or something. I said, okay, let me take on the project. Not only took on the project, I said, okay, let's try and do something fun with this home which you're going to build out. So I looked at what were the sustainability standards at that point of time, and I said, okay, let's go for the highest sustainability standard for a residence, which is the LEED Gold standard. So I went and built out a home at a LEED Gold standard, and it was accredited, and I think it was like one of the first 2,000 homes in America which had got that sort of accreditation of a LEED Gold. But I really enjoyed working with my hands, and I learned a little bit of carpentry on putting the house together. Yes, any joint which is not straight, which is not 90 degrees, I'll take credit for that. But at the same time, I learned a little bit about it. And in fact, now taking on the second part of that journey is we are building a new home in the next year. And I'm hoping to build a LEED Platinum and take it to the next level of sustainability. So it's been a journey which I've really enjoyed. And I think, my wife's not going to be very happy because we are actually moving homes next month into a small apartment, selling the whole place and starting to build a new one.
I wish you all the best in that endeavor, Dilbagh. But tell us, where do you see yourself professionally in the next, let's say, 4 to 5 years, Formula E? I know that you're on the board of the governing body of auto racing, FIA. Where do you see yourself in the next, that's 3 to 5 years?
Arvind, that's a fantastic question. I've really never put my mind down to it, and I'm not trying to duck the question. Because for me, I'll take the philosophy of maximizing today. I don't know where my next opportunity is going to come from and where I can contribute. If I have a choice, I would like to retire from Mahindra. I think this is a place which has given me opportunity, has backed me totally in my dreams in what I've tried to do, and it's been a fantastic organization to work for. On the side, where I think I'd like to contribute a little bit in the next maybe decade or so, is I'd like to become a teacher. For me, teaching is important because I think that's the best connection to the future.
You will be an evangelist for electric mobility, which all of us know that globally and even in India in different forms, electric mobility is going to displace our traditional internal combustion engines. So I hope you'll be an evangelist in that regard. Thank you very much, Dilbagh, for giving us a peek behind the scenes into what a team principal does on Formula E and educating us on Formula E. Would you like to share a message to your audience? I understand you're racing in about an hour. Would you like to share a message to them?
Well, it's literally 35 minutes before we start racing. So yeah, it's the first London race this evening. Guys, I hope I can you guys come in. I got my plug out here. It sort of says, okay, the channel, it's Star Sports Select. It's coming around right now. And
hold it up a little bit more, Dilbagh, so that we can all see it. Perfect.
QR code. This is where you guys can fan boost us and think, okay, so here's the plug. Half an hour from now, we are going to be live on Star Sports. I look forward to you guys joining us.
Great. And the more people who scan that QR code, Alex get more energy in their batteries.
That's right. Yes. Today, obviously, I'm going very energized after this talk with fellow Laurentians getting into the race in half an hour. So yeah, I'm going to sort of change my mindset and get into race mode right now because yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Thanks, guys, for joining, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dilbagh. I wish you all the best for the race today and tomorrow. Sunday, you race again, and then final race in Berlin. And to all of you in the audience, thank you for sharing your time with us. I hope we were able to give you a little bit of an insight into electric vehicles, Formula E racing, and what it means to be a team principal. And thank you, Dilbagh, and back to you, Kalpana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dilbagh. Thank you, Arvind. That was phenomenal, very interesting information you passed along to us, and I'm sure you've energized and boosted a lot of young minds as well. So with that, I pass it on to Rohan to close us out.
Thank you so much, Dilbagh. That was an education. I mean, I've followed Formula E here and there, but those little specifics about 98% energy, and you're sadly selling your gas guzzler in Boston. These are very important things. It's a trend. It sets the trend for the future. It sets the tone. And I'm just curious, Dilbagh, I have a question for you since you're there. How relevant is all of this in India? I mean, I live, as you know, in Kodaikanal on a mountain. We were talking about it. We have no power most of the time. How is Mahindra, I know you're making extremely expensive cars from your test bed, but how is it going to translate to reality in our home country?
Well, now, I think from an Indian perspective, yes, this decade from 2021 to 2030 is going to be the electric decade. I'm pretty confident to make a pretty bold statement of saying that if not your next car, the car after that is going to be electric. Okay, what you're going to buy. So in the next couple of years, you are going to buy an electric car. You don't know it yet, but you are going to buy one. Yep. At the same time, I think from our perspective, we are looking at what we call last mile mobility first. So it's basically going towards commercial vehicles before we get into to passenger vehicles, because I think the bigger impact you can make is on the commercial side. Okay, when we talk about pollution, Rohan, we normally talk about the smoke and the stuff coming out of the old gasoline engine. I think the bigger difference on pollution also, which we should keep in mind, is sound pollution. Just imagine you have a silent electric bus going by your window like living in Mumbai, rather than a clanking of gears and hearing all that sound. So it's both sound and air pollution, which are sort of getting tackled. And I think that's really important. And from a Mahindra perspective, you are going to start seeing other options coming in terms of electric mobility. We started many, many years ago through Mahindra Reva. And I think that was a pioneer to the industry. And I think you're going to see a lot more product coming out, not only from us, but from the entire industry. Like, I think you're going to see the competition bring out stuff. And I think at the end of the day, it's a race to the future. And you know, there's no finish line to it.
And Kalpana, I think you have a question. You don't seem to be much of a car freak, but you have something about sustainability which touches a chord with you.
Yes, I do. So once again, thank you very much, Dilbagh and Arvind, for that great conversation. I was particularly intrigued on all your sustainability efforts. And Dilbagh, you mentioned that you had lots of plane rides to do all that you need to do. So can you talk a little bit about the carbon footprint that's associated with those flights? And I'm sure you have that in mind. So please tell us what you all are doing.
Well, Kalpana, that's a point which we do realize that, okay, we do have a carbon footprint because of we have to take the show globally. At the same time, we try to tread lightly. Mm-hmm. So we are very conscious on which aircraft we get to. Okay. What's the output of the aircraft? And in fact, we've taken it up in a pretty scientific way at our end, just not only just our travel, but our rental cars, the hotels we stay in, etc. Mm-hmm. And we've sort of offset that carbon footprint of ours. And today, I'm proud to say that we are the only motorsport team in the world which is net carbon zero since inception for the last 7 years. And we talk about sustainability, Kalpana, we also encourage a few of our sponsors. In fact, the glasses I'm wearing right now is made from recycled fishing nets.
Wow.
Very interesting, yeah. So, thank you. Thanks very much. Arvind, I have a question for you as well. I know you have a very long professional career in the automobile industry, and particularly with the electric automobile industry in India. Can you please share a little few thoughts on that with us?
Sure, Kalpana. And I'll just add to what Dilbagh has already said. In electric vehicles, the batteries are probably the most expensive part of the vehicle. And the initial cost of the batteries really sets people off because they are expensive. So in India, I think the first application, just exactly how Dilbagh said, will be in last mile mobility. So the Amazons, the Flipkarts, the big baskets, all those guys who are delivering stuff to you, especially after COVID with all these e-commerce guys just going completely crazy, those guys will switch very quickly to electric, because if you're driving more than 100 kilometers a day, you actually save more money than if you're a gasoline or diesel. So those guys will switch for financial reasons, more so than being green or sustainable. So you'll see that switch is happening as we speak in the Ubers, the Olas, in commercial mobility. So that's where it will happen before personal use. But personal use, it will happen too. And as Dilbagh said, your second car or even first car may be electric.
Thank you, Arvind. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Kalpana. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalpana, once more. And to everybody here, Arvind, Dilbagh, thank you once more. To the all Laurentians in the audience, don't forget, scan the QR code. It's in the link down below. And Dilbagh has shown it out here. We'll share the image with you as well. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great evening. See you next month.